In today's Farm Report, Ag's up-and-coming farmers and ranchers say tech and knowing how to use it will be a big part of how they do things in the future. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
So if you were to ask the future of agriculture, in this case 4-H students who are involved in farming or ranching in some way, what their future holds, much of it will be dependent on technology and understanding how to use it in practical ways. For example, Jenny Golbuff of Colorado supports genetically modified crops because
these modified crops actually use less fuel, help water efficiency, reduce spray uses, and give farmers better harvest per acre.
But her interest stems from years earlier, when a tornado tore out her family's corn and soybean crops for the year.
When I found out about the biotech crops a few years later, I was amazed. Just imagine traits and such being added to corn and other crops so that they could have stronger stalks and not be as easily destroyed in storms. Better harvests and less resources used to help feed the future generations. That's what we need to be thinking about right now.
Mara Winters of Texas says ag has benefited from great technological advances, but she also notes caution in how some technologies are used. She knows the benefits of artificial insemination and in vitro technologies for livestock, but wonders how that could impact future gene pools as animals are bred for specific traits. She notes a personal example of genetic diversity. Her goat, Hash Brown.
From bottle baby to a vertical 8-foot-tall goat on his back hooves, this genetic mashup has never gone down due to illness. His only medication is the monthly worming and an occasional booster shot. His diversity in breeding has aided him in being an extremely healthy livestock example.
Colton Searcy of California says technological advances in agriculture, combined with outreach to bridge the knowledge and communications gap between farmers and consumers, will be important in the future to solve issues such as having enough water resources at times of drought, something his state, his county, is facing right now.
If we build water infrastructures and contain the water, we will revive the local economy from all the loss of crops. Even with the water restrictions, we would need 11 trillion gallons of water. That equates to the amount of water Niagara Falls puts out in about 150 days.
Minnesota's Hannah Hasbargen says one of the challenges future farmers face are consumer perceptions of some technologies, but notes if tech advances and innovations are taken away from the producer, ag productivity to feed the nation and world declines, while prices for food, fuel, and fiber increases.
Will we face a situation like other developing countries where a higher percentage of our disposable income is used to feed the nation? Or will we allow technological advances to continue to infiltrate the agriculture industry?
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The lakes and rivers we love to be clean. The streams and wetlands that feed them also need to be clean too.
That's what Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Gina McCarthy told reporters as she explained the new Clean Water Rule aimed at protecting such water resources as streams and wetlands from pollution and degradation.
The streams and wetlands 1 in 3 Americans rely on for drinking water, and we're doing that without creating any new permitting requirements and maintaining all previous exemptions and exclusions.
McCarthy says some exclusions are even being added.
Features like artificial lakes and ponds, water-filled depressions from construction, and grass swales.
Jo Ellen Darcy, Assistant Secretary of the Army, put the rule into perspective.
It's an important reminder that the Clean Water Act, plain and simple, makes it illegal to pollute or destroy a covered water without a permit. If you're not doing either of those things, you do not need a permit, no matter the water status.
The new rule is designed to clearly define what's covered and what's not. For USDA Radio, Susan Carter, Washington, D.C.
Where does our food come from, and how is it produced? Those are some of the questions 4-H students from around the country and other youth supportive of agriculture are answering for us. Rod Bain with the USDA has more.
Bridging the gap between farmer and consumer, rural and urban, so we all know why agriculture is so important to our daily lives. That is perhaps the most significant issue these young people in agriculture must face involving their future. That is according to some 4-H students who recently spoke at a House Agriculture Subcommittee hearing in the nation's capital. However, they also noted how they are up to the challenge of educating, informing all of us about farming and ranching in a variety of ways. Take Garrett Tamara, a 6th-generation rancher from Nevada. He and his mother began researching how to make the connection with the consumer.
We found out that in one of the southern states, they have an app called the Meet Your Farmer in their grocery store. This app allows them to virtually meet the producer through a video that tells them about how the food got from the farm to the store. One way we educate our community in our county is that we bring ag in the classroom to the middle school. We bring livestock from all over the county and tell the kids about the animals' byproducts and how they're made.
In many cases, families are inviting consumers to come to the farm and see how they operate. This is Alexandra Swan from Delaware.
Newcastle County is teaming up with a local creamery and having a day on the farm. It's an opportunity for people in Newcastle County to just come and see what farmers do, what it's like to have a dairy farm. And not only a dairy farm, we're inviting other businesses in agriculture to come and speak to the people and teach them and inform them of where their food comes from, how it's produced.
And in addition to education, some farms are turning to agritainment and agritourism, not just as a business opportunity, but as an information source about farming. This is Illinois' Jill Parent, who works with her family on a pumpkin farm.
I have a passion to teach the public about agriculture through agritainment that excites them while keeping them interested in the lessons that we teach them. If I have the opportunity to impact 20 kids, that's 20 kids that know more about agriculture than they would have without us.
But perhaps the best way to bridge the gap and educate all of us about agriculture, regardless of our backgrounds, is through personal interaction. Darby Schmidt is a 4-H student in Missouri, attending a large suburban school district.
4-H was my gateway to agriculture. I've had many opportunities to see firsthand the public's misconception of today's agriculture. Most of my classmates have no idea where their food comes from and have a lack of knowledge of today's modern agriculture. When my friends come over to my house, they're very interested to learn about how their food is raised. They don't understand how livestock is fed and watered every day. They also don't understand how, when livestock is sick, medication is required. Everyone eats, so it is important for everyone to learn about where their food comes from.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
NRCS, starting now, is making available a new tool for our customers, farmers and ranchers, to access help conservation planning assistance online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service Chief Jason Weller spent time with reporters Wednesday talking about the new Conservation Client Gateway that allows producers to access and conduct conservation business.
A producer can now log in through their account. It's a secure, safe, protected account, and they can do a lot of different services online that they would normally do out of our field offices,
such as identifying fields that need conservation assistance, applying for programs, or even signing documents.
So instead of having to come in field office, in some cases for producers, and especially in larger states, that could be a journey of 100 miles or more, they can now e-sign their documents online in a secure way.
The web address is www.nrcs.usda.gov/ all one word, Client Gateway. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Climate change is happening, and it will impact agriculture. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture gives us a real-life look at how farmers may have to react.
So what might potential climate change look like from the real-world perspective of a farmer or forester? Climate specialist Pam Knox of University of Georgia Extension says one notable area is longer growing seasons.
Done some research that shows that for about every degree Fahrenheit that we have increase in temperature, the growing season increases by about a week. And so that allows farmers to plant different varieties of crops or different species of crops, and sometimes even do some double cropping.
However, there are some trade-offs that could impact crops and livestock. For example, changes in temperature could place additional stress on plants.
It causes more evaporation of water from the soil, so you've got drier soils, and it also causes more evapotranspiration from the plants, so potentially there's more stress on the plants as well. This is true both of the regular crop plants and also of trees, both producing trees like nut trees and forests like pines.
Knox gives this illustration: the expansion of the Corn Belt farther north and west. There are also greater pest and disease concerns as well.
When the growing season increases, it's good for the plants, but it also, I guess, is good for the pests that eat the plants. And so we've had to deal with some challenges from increased pest pressure on some of the crops.
When it comes to frost seasons, Knox says we can see
some changes in the timing of the frost dates, both the first fall frost date and the last frost date in spring. And those are, of course, can be very devastating to crops that have grown out too far, especially in the spring. If you have a late frost, that can really cause problems for things like blueberries, which is, of course, a big crop in the southeast.
And while annual precipitation levels nationwide have remained near or at average, Knox says the type of rainfall has changed.
The rain is coming in more intense bursts, like more thunderstorm rain, with longer dry spells in between. And that really provides some unique challenges, for example, livestock producers, because they have to worry about erosion off of manure piles and things like that. Anybody who's managing their land and the land is prone to erosion is going to have to deal with probably more erosive events in the future.
In addition, climate change can play a role in our forest, either with drought contributing to drying of fuel load and increased forest fires, or increased ice storms that result in trees in part or in whole becoming weighed down and snapping. That's some of the effects for farmers and natural resource producers. But Knox says they also play a pivotal part in mitigating climate change through their role as stewards of the land and natural resources. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. Back in 2012, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack spoke at Kansas State University's Landon Lecture Series, mentioning the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility.
There is always a concern and a threat to our food supply, and that we need adequate and modern facilities to ensure that we have a safe and abundant food supply.
And Wednesday, 3 years later, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson spoke at the Landon Lecture.
National Bio and Agro Defense Facility will help protect our nation's food supply and public health. We have many missions in the Department of Homeland Security, but they all fall within our broader overarching mission, the protection of our homeland.
And later in the day, both secretaries participated in the groundbreaking ceremony for the new NBAF facility in Manhattan, Kansas, where K-State is located. Once fully operational by the year 2023, NBAF will study zoonotic, foreign animal, and emerging diseases that threaten both human and animal health. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.